The first part of putting in a lap zipper is very similar to a normal zip. You're going to stitch the center back closed with a basting stitch down to the point where your zip ends, and then of course you'll continue with the normal stitch to finish the bottom of the skirt. What I like to do, even if I'm using a lining, is to finish off this edge with a zigzag or a serger stitch, just so you don't have lots of little threads working themselves loose. So I've got my stitch length set to the largest 4.5 for a basting stitch, since I'm going to take this back out after the zipper is in. And I'm just going to stitch the back edge closed. Now I've pressed this seam open, so you can see it's nice and flat. And yes, you can do this on the front of a dress as well. I'm just demonstrating on the back, but I'm going to show you a dress in a moment that I used a lap zipper to zip up the front, because it works both ways. This is a dress I made from my 1950s shirt dress pattern, and in the pattern it calls for buttons, but I went ahead and changed it to a lap zipper because it's so much easier to get in and out of, and it works really nicely. So what you can see is the top of the zipper just barely peeks out here, but this edge here laps over and hides the zipper, and you just get one seam line. So it's a really nice finish. And I'll provide a few tips on how to do this on the front of a dress that's got a collar, because obviously in this pattern you have the facing, and that can't be stitched all the way down until after you put the zip in. So what you'll see is I have just hand stitched it in place to cover the zipper on the inside. So that's the one alteration that you have to make to the pattern, but it's quite easy. And once you've mastered a lap zip, I think you probably want a whole wardrobe full of them because they're just so convenient. So take your zipper and unzip it, and what you're going to do is flip it over like this and line up the right hand side with the right hand seam allowance. You do want to make sure that you know where your zip is going to stop. So for instance, you don't want it to run all the way up to the top here, because this is actually going to turn under since I've got the lining here. And I'll place a hook and eye at the top just to close the last little bit. So I'm going to put this, the ending of the zip, right about here, which is about 3/4 of an inch from the top. You can do it according to whatever you like. As you pin this zipper in place, you need to line the teeth up with your seam, this middle seam that you just made. Here's the first half of the zipper pinned in place, and you do want to make sure you don't go through into the bodice. You just want to pin through the seam allowance all the way down. You can go ahead and stitch the zipper in place, and remember, you are going down the outside edge here. You are not stitching over next to the teeth. So actually you could do this with a conventional foot, but I've just got my zipper foot on, so I'm ready for the next step. So stay as close to this edge as you can without falling off, and stitch it all the way down. It's very important to remember that you're only stitching through this little bit. I know I'm hammering on that, but it's really easy to forget and then catch the dress beneath. So just check to make sure that you don't have anything folding up underneath this as you go. Right, I've reached the end of my zipper, so I'm going to reverse and cut threads there. Pull your zipper all the way up to the top so it's closed, and fold it away from you so that we're now looking at the correct side of the zipper. Here we are with our back seam. You can see we've got a narrow little edge here between the middle of the seam and the zip, and we are now going to fold this over this half of the zipper towards the teeth and pin it in place. This is where most people get confused and lose their way, but I promise you it's easier than it looks, and I'm hoping that showing you step by step is going to help you master this. Now you can see where I've pinned this seam to the zip beneath. This is the middle of the bodice seam in the back, or the front, whatever you're working on. And there's a scant edge here, about 1/8 of an inch, that runs up to the teeth. Now the one area you're going to have to watch out for, especially if you're using a thick fabric like I've got here, is when you get to this waistline seam, you've got bulk here. The best thing to do is actually just trim this down, and I'm going to do that now. So So I just trimmed down the seam allowance here so that when this folds over, we don't have a huge chunk to run over with the presser foot when we sew. There it is, all pinned in place and ready to stitch. So let's go sit at the sewing machine. All we're trying to do is stitch this little tiny slim area next to the teeth. The zipper is flat on the machine. The rest of the dress is folded away to the side, so you don't want to stitch through the rest of the dress. Just make sure that's all you're aiming for right there. It'll help you when you start here to undo the zip about 1 inch. And once you get past this area, you can raise the foot and re-zip it and then move on. This is a little bit tricky, but you can do it. You just have to kind of push the zipper back up under the presser foot, get it out of the way, and then lower the presser foot again and move on. And take out your pins as you go. I'm going slowly because I want to make sure that I'm not running over this middle seam line here, and I'm just sticking right on this teeny tiny 1/8 of an inch or so, right by the teeth. And yeah, I realize the zipper foot is going actually over the teeth and I'm very close, but that's the way you've got to stitch this. Here we are. There's a close-up to show you that the stitching is, it's really tough to see, but it's right along the edge. There you go. Now you're ready for the final step. You're going to fold the zipper back over the center back seam, and we're going to stitch it in place using the zipper foot, going down this edge. And when we reach the bottom, just above the stop of the zip, we're going to make an L and go this direction and then quit. And we are going through all the layers at this point because this is the final seam that's going to make that nice lap over on the front or the back, whatever you're sewing. So I've pinned the zipper in place and I am ready to stitch. Let's go do this. Right, as we did on the first step where I stitched down this outside edge of the zip tape, we're going to do that here as well. We're not stitching by the teeth. We are stitching over here by the outside edge of the zip tape, and we're going to go all the way down and then make that little L just above the stop of the zip. Okay, there's my zip stop, so I'm going to leave my needle in and make a turn. And just go straight across and reverse, and we're done. And there we go. We've got this lovely closure here, and all we have to do now is seam rip gently in this seam to take out our basting stitches, and then we'll be able to run the zip up and down. Here you see I've got my seam ripper and I'm just removing the basting stitches as I go down. Here we go. There is our beautiful covering of the zip, and it unzips all the way down. I have just absolutely fallen in love with this lap zip option, and I definitely will be making a lot more with them on the front. It's very nursing friendly for you moms who are breastfeeding like me. And it just makes a really nice finish. I like it better than a conventional zip, and I actually now like it better than an invisible zip. One final thing, since this is a fully lined bodice, what I'm doing to finish it off on the inside is just folding under the back edge and pinning it right next to the zip teeth, or 1/8 of an inch away, and then I'm going to hand stitch that in place. Securing the lining on the opposite side is a little bit different because this is the lap. And obviously I don't want to stitch it here or I lose my zipper. So what I do is just pin it in place, and then I'm just going to do a small series of stitches to secure it to the actual zipper tape on the other side of the teeth. So I'll end up with stitches here, but I folded this under completely, so I end up with the zipper accessible, but the lining folded down and finished. I hope that makes sense. It makes sense once you see it. Just basically fold the lining away under the top and then stitch through just the zipper tape itself and not into the opposite side. And then you'll have a nicely finished lining on this edge. Right, so I said at the beginning I would tell you how to take this lapped zipper option and swap it in instead of a button front like you get on my classic ladies 1950s shirt dress. Or for that matter, any shirt dress you've got that has a button overlap at the front, you can change it to a lapped zipper. Basically, all you need to do when you're at the step of sewing the facing to the bodice, and the facing on mine forms the collar. Here is the inside facing. When you're stitching it on, this is long before you've set sleeves or anything else, you're going to come around the collar, and normally you would keep stitching all the way down to the bottom of the bodice. But you're not going to do that. If you're going to put a lap zipper option in, you need to stop wherever you want the zipper to hit. So take your bodice, put it on, look at it in front of a mirror and decide where do you want your neckline. If you're using the pointed collar option, which makes a kind of a V-neck with the point here, then you want to kind of eyeball it. You might want it to close higher, right below the neck, up here. Or you may want to have a little bit of a V, which is what I've got here. Anyway, whatever you decide is fine. Just mark it with either a fabric marker or a pin, and then take it off. Same thing if you're doing the round collar option, which makes a kind of a tulip petal shape. Just eyeball it, put it on, decide where you want the zipper to stop, and mark that. Then, when you sew your facing around the collar and down the bodice, just stop at that pin. In fact, you'll start at the pin on one side, go all the way around, and come and stop on the other side. Then you're going to skip the remaining steps until you finish this lap zipper, which will be after you've put the skirt on. So you're going to put the sleeves in, put the skirt on, put in the lap zipper, and then you've got to secure this facing to either side of the zip tape. And as I mentioned before, all I did was turn it under and whip stitch it. So it's just a small stitch all the way down here. And then of course I also turned under the bottom edge and secured it over the waistline seam on both sides. And that's it. It's really very simple. It's just kind of stopping halfway through one step and leaving it open for your zip, and then continuing at the end to make a nice finish for your insides, so you don't have any funny frayed bits hanging around your zipper teeth. You don't want that. And there you go. That's it. And you will end up with a beautiful lapped zipper option on your front of your bodice.